Hey guys, hopefully y'all enjoyed your first day of the Path of Exile 2 patch 0.3 launch. I just came off of a 17.5 hour live streaming session and I am extremely tired, but oh my god, was today extremely fun. I had such a good time playing this patch and I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying it as well. But that's not what this video is talking about today. Today, I want to cover my Hollow Palm Chayula monk that I took from Act 1 at the beginning all the way to the end of Act 4. And so far, I have to say that this has been one of the smoothest campaign leveling experiences I have ever had for a League starter in Path of Exile 2. So, off the bat, is Hollow Palm a bait build? So far, I would say it is definitely not, because the campaign experience, I would say, is probably going to be the best campaign experience you're ever going to have playing a quarterstaff as a League starter, or even just in campaign in general. Some of the normally harder bosses in the campaign, like Jamanra in Act 2 and the big old monkey in Act 3, just died effortlessly. It was some of the fastest kills for those enemies I've ever seen. The only time I really kind of struggled was in Act 4 when I hadn't upgraded my gear since Act 2. And after I did that with some randomly bought store gear, it was completely fine and I barely died after that. Now, of course, this is no Essence Drain Contagion. It is not that smooth. But again, if you are playing Quarterstaff and want to use Quarterstaff for a campaign, there is none better than this one. And also, since it doesn't have a weapon to worry about, I would say that this is a fairly new player-friendly build because it's one less thing to worry about, one less rune socket to worry about, one less thing to look for. It's just in general a very straightforward build. Now, the reason why Hollow Palm is so strong in the campaign is because normally when you level in the campaign, especially as a martial weapon class, you have to upgrade your weapon every couple levels or so. And if you get a really, really good weapon, it starts out really strong, but you're probably gonna have to upgrade the weapon in like 10 levels. And by the end of that 10 level experience, you may or may not even be guaranteed another really good weapon. You might just have to use a random run of the mill weapon just to make it through the campaign. Well, Hollow Palm, you don't have to do that at all because Hollow Palm is an unarmed build. And with this, it gives you physical damage based off of the level of the skill that you're using. And the question was, how well does it scale? How does it compare to a normal weapon? And I have to say that the amount of damage that you get will almost never be worse than a quarterstaff that you find in the campaign. Like, you really have to have an extremely godlike quarterstaff to even come close to beating the amount of DPS that you're outputting with the Hollow Palm Keystone passive. So with that, again, I really don't think that you're ever going to want to level without it in the campaign if you're going a quarterstaff build. So hopping into the game, we have my Acolyte of Chayula, who is level 57, Chalupi Cabra, and it is rocking some pretty abysmal stats. So we have 1,052 life and 0 energy shield, 0 armor, and 11% evasion. Pretty typical of a campaign character. 56% fire res, 54% cold, and 8% lightning res. So very, very bad stats. Now, I would say that normally these are okay stats going to Act 3 Cruel or something like that. Act 4 and the Interlude are definitely a little bit more difficult than that. So you're definitely going to want to have some better stats than this. But regardless, we were actually able to make it through the campaign, again, fairly smoothly because of our build. So a lot of people who have played the Hollow Palm playstyle have been complaining a lot about the survivability of the class. I think people totally Rax actually like went and deleted his Hollow Palm monk at like Act 4 because he kept dying. Well, I think that's mainly because they are all trying to force some sort of melee build like Ice Strike and make it work when their damage isn't the highest. And because of that, they just keep dying and don't progress, or they just get really frustrated and they delete their character. Well, this build is a little bit different because we end up using Stormwave as our main clear. Stormwave is extremely powerful because it is a ranged attack. Now let's talk about the skills and kind of the journey up to where I am right now. So starting off, I actually went with spears and whirling slash and using an offhand or secondary weapon swap frozen locust with a quarterstaff. This was an extremely smooth leveling experience, and I think they actually buffed Twister on top of just like the damage. I guess the way that the Twisters worked and behave also got buffed to where it was so easy to do damage in the early campaign. I would highly recommend you do this if you are a monk and thinking about going quarter staves, because unfortunately, quarter staves are just not very good at leveling in the early levels. So I just made a Huntress really quickly, took the hardwood spear from the Huntress and the whirling slash and just transferred it over. And then from Renly on my other character, my monk, I took the uncut skill gem and turned it into Twister. So for this, we had a setup of whirling slash, Twister, frozen locust, and frozen bomb to strip the elements, elemental exposure. And for this, we had martial tempo, or rapid attacks, sorry. And I didn't end up getting rage because I didn't have enough skill gems. So we just went with rapid attacks. Then we went with retreat and elemental armament for Twister. For frozen locust, we didn't have anything in it, but here are some suggestions if you do end up getting some more extra gems. But yeah, this was very, very smooth. And I did this up until like level 13 or something. I pretty much beelined it all the way to the Hollow Palm setup. So I just went straight from here, right? Took these skill speed nodes, went down, skipped these attack nodes all the way over here, and then just went up to the Hollow Palm technique. So absolutely beelined it there. And then after that, we ended up using Wind Blast and Glacial Cascade as our main damage skills. Well, Wind Blast came a little bit later, but what I realized was that Wind Blast was actually a very, very good standalone skill for AoE later on. So I actually would recommend you guys using Wind Blast for your AoE. And if you want to combine it with Staggering Palm, it'll actually make it do more damage. I ended up swapping over to Ice Strike whenever I could. That was for our single target. But I would say that up against the Count Geonor fight, Glacial Cascade was the one that kind of carried, because Geonor has a lot of stuff that he puts around him that it's like dangerous to stand near him. So in those situations, you can use Glacial Cascade, and then when you're close up and personal, you can use Ice Strike. The nice thing about some of these changes to these support gems that they did this league, allowing you to use multiple support gems, is that you actually can have multiple main skills. In the past, because you could only use one copy of a support gem on one skill, it meant that you had one skill that was just way more powerful than the rest. Well, in this case, I was like, okay, well, since I can use multiple support gems, let's just use rapid attacks and elemental armament on both the Glacial Cascade and the Ice Strike. And that's exactly what I did. Range, when I couldn't hit the boss close up, I used Glacial Cascade. Later on, I use Ice Strike and Tempest Bell. I use Overabundance for this just to make it a little bit easier to keep chaining them back and forth, because if you don't use Overabundance, you can't actually stack the bell stacks when your bell is up. So this is the kind of the way to do it, to make it so that you can keep your bell up as often as possible. And then the support gem that I took was Herald of Ice. This is just going to be your aura until like level 22 when you eventually swap over to Stormwave. So if you don't want to take this, you can feel free to not, because it doesn't really even do all that much anyways. But I still ended up taking it because I was like, I figure I'd get it later and get another spirit gem later anyways. And that's exactly what happened. Vaulting Impact, we combined with Wind Blast on our bosses. I'd say it was kind of useful, kind of not with the break stance. It's up to you if you want to use it. I just kept it in this guide just because. So that is going to be the Act 1 build. In Act 2, it's pretty much the same, except we ended up getting the Storm Wave, which ends up being our main clear. We use rapid attacks and elemental armament for this. And what I would say is that this is going to be the main carry for the rest of the campaign, because this is a nice range skill that does a good amount of damage. So you're definitely going to want to keep this one up. I didn't use Upheaval because I heard that it wasn't that good. At least the level 1 one. I never confirmed it with anybody. I never tried it, but I was just like, okay, sure. And I kept with just rapid attacks and elemental armament. You really don't need Upheaval. It works just fine without it. So that's what I did. And I got the Into the Breach skill for our first Ascendancy, and I ended up using Harmonic Remnants and Remnant Potency on it. So this was a nice little, just kind of, I don't know, extra little bit of damage that you get with the Ascendancy. It's not that bad. I'd say it's probably better than taking Volatility on the first one because the Volatility stacks are just a little bit inconsistent sometimes. This is a nice just source of damage you're going to get all the time. That is going to be carried throughout the rest of the campaign. So that was Act 2. Didn't really change too much here. Just added Stormwave and Into the Breach. Now, Act 3, I ended up getting some more lesser Jeweler's Orbs, so I ended up adding some more skill gems into this, but we added Charge Staff in Act 3. Now, with Charge Staff, getting Frenzy Charges is a little bit difficult with this build because normally you would be using Ice Strike as your main clear, and with that, you're able to freeze enemies, use Combat Frenzy, and go and get charges that way with Resonance. But for our build, because we didn't use Ice Strike as a clear option and we used Stormwave, we couldn't quite do that. So I ended up going Killing Palm and Lingering Illusions to get those power charges. Killing Palm actually does a decent amount of damage because it's based off your weapon now. And then Linger Illusions is pretty nice when you are kind of like bobbing and weaving between enemies and the enemies kill it, your little illusion, and then it gives you a power charge. Not that bad. It's pretty nice. Probably not as consistent as Charge Frenzy, but again, we're using Stormwaves as a main clear, so can't quite do that. For these three skills, we're using Perpetual Charges and Innervate on this Charge Staff. Innervate, that way we get a little bit of extra damage when we kill stuff for electricity or lightning damage. And then Killing Palm, we have Concentrated Area and Brutality on it, just do more damage. And then Linger Illusions, we have Charge Profusion to get more charges, and we have Prolonged Duration, that way the illusion lasts longer and the monsters have more of a chance to kill it. Now, this was pretty much all I used going all the way through the axe, and again, it was very, very, very smooth. Going into our tree, again, I talked about this earlier, but I ended up beelining it all the way down to Hollow Palm Technique to start off, and you get here around level 13 with the current routing. And then afterwards, I came back for the extra attack damage, and I got the extra lightning damage as well, and that was Act 1. Act 2, we went down this way to get the extra freeze damage, the cold damage. Then we got the extra attack damage here with Blinding Strike, which is really nice. And then we also went up here to get some of these elemental stuff because with the Essence of the Storm and also Essence of the Mountain, you're always going to be chilling things, right? And then you're also going to be shocking things pretty often because you're using Stormwave, and that's a lightning-based attack. So this is just a nice little boost of damage that you pretty much get for free. Very, very close nodes, right? Later on, you're going to be pathing over here anyways, so we might as well get those right now. Now, in Act 3, we went and added some attack speed because attack speed is nice QOL for the Ice Strike. And early on in the campaign, even though our Hollow Palm does scale your attack speed with evasion, again, I think you mostly want to use armor then, but also the evasion numbers you're getting are just so low that it doesn't make your attack speed that high anyways. So in Act 3, we get a little bit more attack speed, and then we also went the Siphon node right here because we did start having a little bit of mana problems. Now, when you're running into mana problems, I would say that one of the main reasons why is you're probably scaling too much melee attack, which normally, like your melee levels, your melee skill levels, normally that's really, really good because this build basically two-folds itself with the increase in skill level because we get increase in damage from Hollow Palm Technique, but also increase in damage from the skill itself. But unfortunately, the skills are quite expensive, so you're going to be using this at the end of the day. Just to help you out with a little bit of mana. If you're still having more mana issues, it's worth giving up some damage to go and get conservative casting, just because if you're using so much mana, you're probably scaling levels, which means you're doing enough damage anyways. So it wouldn't hurt to get some of this extra skill nodes on the tree. So we go these two for my build, and then later on we path down here to get the Primal Sundering, and then over here to get Maiming Strike. And that should be what you have at around the end of Act 3. And then in Act 4, you're going to want to grab the rest of these elemental nodes just because they're nice and close. And then go up here and grab some of this freeze node right here, because you do quite a bit of freeze damage later on, because you're going to be swapping a little bit more over to your ice strike side of things and using your shock side of things less with a storm wave. And just to, round it up, get careful assassin, just to get a little more crit chance as we go, right? This is pretty much all I have planned up to in terms of like actual testing. I do have the end game guide and the pre-original sin and post-original sin here. The pre-original sin might have a little bit too much. I'll probably fix that in just a little bit. But yeah, I haven't tried this out yet, so I can't really say for sure it's gonna work. But this again is just a day one update with all of my progress there. So again, there is a mobalytics guide if you wanted to follow along. That is going to be in the description below. But yeah, that about wraps up this video here. If you guys are enjoying this campaign, or maybe not enjoying, I don't know, let me know down in the comment section below. But as per usual, if you enjoyed the video, please, the best way to support the channel and let me know is by hitting the sub button. It is completely free. And also, I stream every single night on twitch.tv/bslickshir. So hopefully I see you guys there. But if not, hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. All right, guys. Peace.